Great. So, we'll get started, and I'm sure Shatakshi will be joining us soon. And this is something that we've been trying to plan for quite some time. There's a lot of interest that we've been seeing in people making career transitions lately, right? Over the last 1 or 2 years specifically, there have been so many factors that have led people to think very deeply about their career paths. And up till I would say 1990s or early 2000s, people were generally very comfortable about sticking to one career path because there weren't that many different options out there, right? There was maybe just medical line and engineering line, and doing your own business and a couple of other mainstream options like government jobs, etc. Today, the world is an oyster and there's just a plethora of career options. But more than that, what we have seen is things are also transitioning very rapidly, both at work and individuals' own priorities. So want to dive deep into all of that today. Where we can start quickly is, Deepa, maybe what you can do is just share a bit about yourself, just a little bit of background on your career journey, how you started and where you are today, and then we'll turn it over to Anmol, and hopefully soon Shatakshi will join us as well.
Sure, Arjun. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible enough?
Yes. Yes, we can hear.
Yes, thank you. Yes, sure, Arjun. First of all, it's great to have this discussion. This is such a needed topic to discuss, and I'm glad to share my experience here. So, I'm Deepa Tojan. Currently, I'm working as Senior L&D Specialist with Booking Holdings, COE, India. So, it's a parent company of travel companies like Booking.com, Agoda, Kayak, etc. So, I've been with the organization for 3 months now. So I am that freshly transitioned beneficiary of pivot, I would say. Prior to Booking Holdings, I have close to 4 years of experience with Deloitte as a talent management analyst. Prior to that, I was a HR tech consultant, again with Deloitte. So in total, I have close to 5 years of experience. I always wanted to transition into L&D, which seemed a little too, what do you call it? A little too tough for me at the time because I didn't know how to take that path forward. So yes, I waited for long 5 years to make this transition. Then I had a freelancing gig in between after Deloitte. I freelanced for a year to test the waters, to know what L&D landscape looks like. And I wanted to learn more. I wanted to work with an organization and wanted to see end to end how L&D works with an organization works. So hence, I decided I will join back in the corporate sector. And thanks to Arjun and his team, I had a very smooth transition. So we'll get a lot more into the detail as we discuss more about it. But yes, that's a short story. And regarding my qualifications, I did my MBA in HR. I was a campus hire in Deloitte. Prior to that, I'm a maths grad. I did my graduation in mathematics, then MBA from HR, and then Deloitte, and then here, I would say. That's a snapshot of my career journey.
Amazing. Great. Thanks so much, Deepa. It's very helpful. And we'll obviously dive deeper very soon into your journey in detail. I'll bring Anmol to the stage here. Anmol, welcome again, and great to have you here. So same thing as what just Deepa did. If you could share a bit about your journey as well, and what's unique about your transition compared to perhaps others that are here.
Yeah, thank you, Arjun. So I am Anmol Shrivastava. I've been working at Accenture Strategy for a little more than 3 years as capacity as a management consultant. So I have gone through transitions multiple times and in various forms. So before coming to Accenture, I was working with Coal India, a PSU. So working in a PSU was an entirely different experience. There were a lot of pluses, there were a lot of minuses, but the way that company operated was very different from how Accenture operated. So my first transition came when I shifted from public sector enterprise to a corporate sector, which I did through my MBA, through an executive MBA course. So that was the first transition. Then, in my interaction with Arjun and what I have seen, so we should define transitions in a lot broader way. So my first type of transition was like a total field change, wherein I shifted from PSU to a corporate sector. Then, because I worked at Coal India, it's a mining company. So in my first couple of years at Accenture Strategy, I was largely associated with mining projects, which was like a natural progression. You did mining work in the industry. Now you're doing mining work at consulting. So that was what I felt like getting stuck, that I don't want to get labeled as a mining specialist, mining SME. So what to do? So then I type of transition which I did, that I consciously made efforts that I diversify my profile to go beyond mining industry, but okay, something related to manufacturing, ops excellence, which I was largely part of, but diversified into non-mining sectors. My another step of transition when it came was, so I had a lot of enthusiasm for working in the impact sector, be it any functional role, be it in a tech role, be it a non-tech role, but something to do with the impact sector. So then I got to know about that within Accenture there's a division which we call ADP, Accenture Development Partnership, which is a core part of Accenture. So then through referrals, through proactive pitching and pitching my work, my interests, I was now able to get associated with ADP work. So in that way, from PSU to corporate, then within corporate, within the same company, changing the industry domain or the work domain is what has been my transition journey. Arjun, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. No, I was just saying, great. Thanks for sharing that. I do feel there are a lot of unique elements to that journey that we'll cover in a bit. And it seems like you have made multiple transitions, right? If you look at the definition of transition broadly. So would love to dive deeper. And then we'll bring up Shatakshi as well. So Shatakshi, welcome. Glad you could join. And it would be great if you can just share a bit about your background, where you started your career, where you are today in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Arjun, for bringing me as one of the panelists here. I'll share a bit about my background, try to keep it brief. I'm an engineer. I did my electrical engineering from one of the regional colleges in my hometown. And then I was, as a matter of fact, I was a defense aspirant. So I was preparing for defense services. And by the way, which I cleared, but I apparently could not join because I am a single child of my parents. That entire idea of adapting and learning, I figured out that I cannot stay idle. So I joined Amazon as a machine learning associate in Hyderabad. And then I again shifted my career to a talent acquisition specialist with one of the startups, which is in Bangalore, called Scalar Academy. Overall, I have 6+ years of experience. And with the help of Pivot and Arjun's team, I was able to make a huge transition from talent acquisition specialist to an HR and L&D specialist, which I'll be speaking more about as we go in the session. As of now, when I was transitioning, I did realize that there is a lot of need for learning, which somehow gets deteriorated as you grow older. It requires a lot of effort to put in a thought to learn. Most people are stagnant, but I was able to break this notion when I came across Arjun and Pivot. And through, I think, one enthusiastic way, I went all out. I took a course with KPMG and I completed my learning and development certification. And I think that's one of the major reasons why I was also able to transit from a talent acquisition full-time HR role and learning development specialist.
Perfect. Great, Shatakshi. And thanks for sharing a bit of flavor around the kind of things that you did to implement your transition. I think that was helpful. We'll talk more about it. So, let's start with the first main point of discussion today. Deepa, I'll bring you up on the screen because I'll address this first question to you. The first thing that people usually come to us for, or they ask us about when we work with them on their transition, is what kind of roles are the right fit for me? Should I be pursuing the same role that I have spent eons in already and have developed deep expertise, and I don't want to give that up, but at the same time I'm experiencing certain points of frustration, whether it's stagnation, whether it's this boredom settling in because you've been doing that for very long, or you feel like that particular field is going to get disrupted by AI or another technology. Many reasons why people feel like they have invested a lot, so they want to stay, but at the same time they have this slightly contrasting feeling of leaving that field. So, how did you decide, firstly, that you wanted to pursue a transition and what that role was going to be that fit you and your needs?
Frustration was one point, I would say. That was the trigger. The major factor for my frustration was the learning that I missed. So I was in a role, I would say, which was pretty easy to handle. I worked with an MNC. It had a very structured, it was a very structured organization. I had a wonderful team with me. I'm still in contact with few of them who are my personal mentors as well in the organization. But even they could feel that, I was having this frustration of being in a space where I was not feeling belonged. So the thing is, whether you're growing in that role, whether there is a scope of doing better, whether there is a scope of providing your inputs, whether you have clarity about the impact you're making. So that was missing. So that was how that was a point wherein I decided, okay, I need to shift now. Or, it would be, I would say, the more experience you gather in a particular field, it's a bit tough for you to make that pivot, honestly, because you are kind of, it is still possible. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but even my sisters who are 7 or 8 years older than me, I have two sisters. I have three sisters, so two sisters are elder than me. So they are in their profession. One is a doctor, one is an engineer. So they keep telling me that if you want to explore an option in your career where you feel passionate about, or you want to explore, not even passion, okay, until and unless you do something, how would you even know whether that's a passion or not? Honestly. Yeah, so you need to explore the options. That is when you understand, okay, this is something I would like to do. So that is passion. Passion is, I would say, passion is something which is overhyped a lot of times. People get sucked into it, not really knowing what that means or how to actually have an action plan. So I think that frustration element was there. I did not feel that I belonged. I did not see a lot of scope of growth. I did not see that I was not really looking forward to a Monday. So yeah, those were the points. And again, my age was one thing. I was on the, I did not have a lot of years of, I was not a 10 plus years of experience person or a 12, 15 plus years of experience person. At that point, when I was making the pivot, I had around 4 years of experience, and I am still young if you look at it in terms of number of years of experience. So yeah, those were the few factors which helped me decide that, okay, now I need to have an action plan, a proper project plan to make this transition, to make a story about, okay, this is where I was, this is how I met my career.
Got it. Got it. So basically, I think what I'm gathering is you wanted to kind of not get into just loud thinking and brainstorming. You wanted to give it more structure. You do it in a more organized way, where you had a action plan, so to speak, which connected your prior experience with something that would leverage it, but at the same time be conducive for your future career priorities and career goals.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
So
think that's actually a very good point, Deepa. Sorry, please go ahead. I think you were saying something.
yeah, to add this one element as well. So even while I was working in my previous profile, I was kind of looking at the market and looking at openings, but it didn't quite work out because I did not have a structure in place. I did not know how to approach it strategically, how to build my story, basically. What is my story at the moment? What is the kind of story I'm trying to build? So I was not able to do that. I was all over the place. So that exact pivot point would be, or that turning point would be, creating a structured plan to make that transition.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Deepa. I think that was helpful. So, Anmol, just a similar question for you. I know you're still in the middle of your second transition. You've made one before, and now you have been working on your next one in some ways. What motivated you to consider this transition? Is it something that was determined primarily by changes in your thinking and interests, or do you feel there was also external forces at play, the market forces at play that affected your approach here in terms of how you want to pursue the next few decades of your career?
So, firstly, I think this is a very important question that any transition journey that you embark on, the first question that what is the actual motivation of transition should always be the very high priority one. And any candidate, whoever is looking for that transition, must invest good time and energy and effort in understanding that motivation. So sometimes it could be financial, sometimes it could just be boredom, sometimes just you wanted different cities, whatever. But for me, the main motivation was, and which I got inputs from you when I started interacting with you, and I told you this frankly, that frankly I was not facing any much issue in my current job, not in monetary term, not in compensation wise, neither in team wise, not in culture. Everything was looking good, but the aspect where I was getting concerned was that I was touching around 7 to 8 years of experience. Now it was the time that if I apply somewhere else, or if I have to go a step further in my own company, I would like have to demonstrate subject expertise or domain expertise. So that was something that the type of work I was doing, I was feeling that maybe now it's no issue, but after a couple of years, I'll start facing that issue. And if I start thinking after 2 years, it will start getting late, which may already be late. So then what my motivation was that I don't want to do this work for the long term. Now it's very good, but maybe for the long term, I may not like it. Or frankly saying, I will get irrelevant in the market in the long run because I'll not be able to develop that expertise. So that was my first main motivation, which I had invested a lot of time in understanding, which helped me build a good pathway on how to make that transition.
Understood. Yeah, I think, like you said, a lot of people do feel like, after some time, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, whether you call it stagnation or, the risk of getting obsolete, certain skill set becoming obsolete, I think it's important that no matter what field you're in, what role you're in, you rethink whether you are growing in your career every few years at least. And this is not, kind of scaremongering or fear mongering or anything like that. I would love if people could just stay, in one role and do that forever and be happy. But we don't always, as individuals, we don't rest on our wins. We don't rest on our laurels. We usually try to keep improving ourselves. And as I was saying earlier, I mean, even if individuals stay stagnant, the world outside and the world around us is changing so rapidly that almost every single role today, whether or not it's in tech, is susceptible to change. And I think that's one of the reasons perhaps that you were also thinking about transitioning. So I think a lot of people can resonate with it, Anmol. I myself have spent a lot of time in consulting, and now I'm running a tech startup. So I understand a lot of the motivations that you talked about. I'll bring Shatakshi into the conversation. Shatakshi, so you've had a transition in some sense similar to Deepa's, I would say, not exactly the same, but some overlapping elements there. The reason we still have both of you in the same discussion, because I want to, and I think you would agree, and hope Deepa agrees as well. I want to say that no two transitions are exactly the same, even if you have overlapping elements, right? So if you can share maybe a little bit about why you decided to change your career path, and what were some of the main goals you were trying to achieve as you pursued this transition.
Right. And I certainly agree with you, Arjun, when you say no two transitions are same, because when I transited for the first time from a machine learning associate role to pure talent acquisition role, it was different. And then when I transited from talent acquisition to HR/L&D, it was completely different. Now, there were certain inhibitions in my mind, like everyone does, whether or not I'll be able to make it through, whether or not should I stay in the same domain, or else I should explore, even if I have to explore what exactly is something that I can explore. But then it again comes back to the same point that change is the only constant, and if we need to grow, we need to grow professionally and to able to adapt the new environment and adapt to new skill sets which are ever evolving, especially since now I am working with one of the organization which builds large language models through their AI and ML enterprise. Everything is changing very rapidly. And when you talk about, so what struck me, to transit from a pure talent acquisition role to an HR role is, there is a lot of scope, and a lot of people are not aware that HR has various layers of work that they do. It's not just the HR thing. They have compensation and benefits, and which, by the way, I also got to know when we were conversing in a very first initial or two conversations where you mentioned me. And that's also something that helped me transit. So knowing what you have to do, since Deepa mentioned putting structure to things, see, being adaptable to the changes are certain things that I kept in mind while I was transitioning. Coming back to how did that happen for me, I did my research, basically, and then when we were speaking about there are multiple layers to, and there are multiple various domains within the HR, which we talked about: employee grievances, employee engagement, comp and benefit, learning and development, payroll, um, um, etc., etc. It struck me because I have previously trained my folks in certain structures, train them on various different processes, and parallel, I was aligned with and I am currently aligned with one of the NGOs which help all the NCC cadets get better jobs, and they develop a comprehensive attitude towards learning something new and getting new jobs. So I think the notion out there, and you can put me at hard stop. I might go on and on and on, because it was a unique transition, which was an amalgamation of discipline, unlearning, relearning, learning about yourself, being emotionally vulnerable, mentally vulnerable,
Yeah.
consistency, etc. So I think this was overall my summary of transition.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the takeaways that I got from what you just shared, Shatakshi, is that at surface level, a lot of the things look very similar, and you will say that, oh, if that person has done X, then this person who's in the same field is also doing X. Meaning, if two people are in HR, that they're doing the same exact things, or if two people are in AIML or in consulting or whatever, that they're doing the same things. But when you dive even a little bit deeper and you start to peel the layers of the onion, you realize how many more different sub functions and different types of fields and roles can comprise within that one larger domain. And I think that is something that a lot of people either miss, or they kind of ignore that point, because when a lot of folks come to us, they think about the very high level function, and then we are the ones usually try to kind of dive deeper into the sub functions, and that's where you really get the meat of the matter, right? That's where you really start to understand whether this is going to be a good fit for you. Because if you just came to us and we were like, okay, Shatakshi, based on these exercises that we have done, and personality assessments, introspection, blah blah blah, I think you should do marketing, you would still feel lost. You wouldn't say, oh yeah, sure, sign me up. You would ask questions about, okay, what does marketing entail? What kinds of marketing careers are there? I think that's an important question that people sometimes don't have either the time, bandwidth, or just the focus to get into. But that's an important one. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and perhaps that's a key takeaway from this session. We'll move on to the next part of this, or the next segment of this discussion. Before I do that, I just want to point out to anybody who has joined us today in the audience to please share your questions, share your thoughts, in the chat section, wherever you are, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube. We will definitely try and take as many questions as possible towards the end of the session, in just a few more minutes. So please do share your questions, right? This is a great time to get anything answered if you're thinking about pursuing a ambitious career move. So, okay, moving on, bring Deepa here. So Deepa, in the next segment, what we want to cover is maybe three things, if I can, put it in very stark terms, 3 things that you feel really helped you make your transition successful, right? And I'll tell you some of the things that we worked on. You can then pick and choose, or maybe if I miss something, you can share your own thought process there. We worked on many things, but some of the things, after understanding which role would be the right fit for you, we did a lot of work with regard to understanding your skills and seeing if there was any work needed to bridge skill gaps or strengthen the existing skill set. Then there was work we did on networking, right? We connected you to many people. We also did work on the job applications, interview preparation, and finally the job search, right? So this was a fairly comprehensive process. There were many things you did. Without any bias, what did you think really worked for you?
Honestly, was Arjun, to finally pinpoint that, okay, this is what I exactly want to do. I'm not going here or there. So I'm also partially answering the question that is there in the chat box. I just saw the question posted in the chat box. So it's also a partial answer to the question that she asked. So I had a couple of options that I wanted to pursue, even though it was in HR. If you remember our conversation, I was a bit confused whether I need to go into HRBP roles or L&D roles or talent management. So as you said, there are many layers to a particular field, whether it's HR or marketing. So we had few options out there, and my prior experience was mostly around HR tech. So it's not exactly core HR. So in Deloitte, I was basically implementing a workforce software called Kronos. That was exactly my profile for a couple of initial years. Out of 4 years, 2.5 years, that was my profile. So it's purely, it is a quasi tech profile. Even though it's a HR tool, it's a tech profile. So then I was paid well. I could work from home. I had all the benefits. Deloitte has one of the best cultures in the in the industry. So, but I was still not happy about it. I did not feel like I was making an impact. So again, the best thing that this entire journey gave me was that clarity around what exactly I want to do. So though I had a few options in front of me, I wanted to pinpoint, okay, it was exactly L&D. It was exactly this that I wanted to get into. So then again, that was the first thing. Second thing that helped me was I always trusted the concept of mentorship. Always I trusted that concept, because since my school days, since my college days, I had, even though I was not very familiar with the term mentor back in school, I used to ask a bunch of people. It could be teachers, it could be random uncles, aunties you meet on the road. It could be random people. I used to ask them about careers. I can show you letters I sent to my auntie. She's no more now, but she was a college professor. I wrote this letter when I was 16. So close to 13 years back. And when I was writing my boards, I wrote this letter asking, okay, I do not know how to choose my career. So basically that text arose from my concern on whether should I go for science or commerce after doing my 10th. So yes, so I always believed in this concept of mentors. The core thing is that, okay, you give me inputs from your experience. So when you take inputs from people who have experience in the same field, it's a different story again. Rather than some random person giving you inputs who have not lived the life you want to live, get those inputs from people who is walking the talk. So that was one element. That was the second element that I learned in my transition journey. So with I used to network a lot on LinkedIn, even prior to it. So with Pivot, I got a more focused group of mentors. I was six. So I had for conversations with mentors, especially thanks to Neha Gupta, Arvind, and Namita. These were the mentors I talked to. I could choose from the mentors list that you had. You had a large pool of mentors available in Pivot. So thanks a lot for that again. So I reached out to these mentors. They were super helpful. So even these mentors, one of them were talent management, another one was this HRBP, and another was a corporate trainer. So basically, I talked to different mentors who were in the professions I want to go into. So that I think helped me a lot. So first is the clarity, second would be the mentorship, and third would absolutely be the structure that that we could build together. So that helped me a lot. That was one point where I was lacking, not having a structure into my career. I was randomly saying, job application or randomly, people without having a clear agenda in my days. So that structure is the third thing that helped me a lot. So you the moment I got my own law firm reviews, the first thing I did was sorry, they are requesting you a lot. What is this? Let's just start with the associated journey. The moment you said that okay, but these are the things we were on, like where you are, I finished the stars, 4 hours of that day, and we said that, and you saying that, I would like to, I would like to review my, maybe the resume or LinkedIn profile, even those specific basics, which you think is basic, but all of those things. I think structure brought accountability. It also brought consistency. That is another thing. So when you have a structure, you are that fire being consistent in the process. So being accountable towards it, being consistent was one element, and again, this consistency brought in the momentum. Right. So I think these are the things that I would especially point out my transition journey.
Very interesting. I think you probably summarize some of the things that we also try to offer in our platform, because we actually, when we started, we didn't know what was going to work. It's not like there are a lot of other platforms out there helping people to career transition. So it's not like we could just copycat. We could just build another towards that, just kind of same kind of platform. So we have a lot of experimentation. I think some of the things that you've done right, especially mentorship and the structure. I still really believe that for any ambitious, whether it's a career or personal goal, you really need these two things. Mentorship goes beyond your career, and I think having a structured roadmap is also very helpful. Even if you have a fitness goal or a relationship goal, anything like that. So I think it highlighted some of the really important points of the program. So I'll move on to Anmol now. Anmol, I know we also spent quite a bit of time together. There's a lot of interactions and discussions regarding your transition and what you wanted to do. Tell me, similar to what Deepa said, but also I wanted to add another element if possible. What did not work? What did you think would work but did not work for you?
Yeah. So building on what Deepa said, I think most important is a very structured approach that we not consider this as one month activity. It's more about an attitude change that you, whatever transition you make, because those type of transition will keep coming. It's not a one-time transition. Maybe some transition will be more radical, but those type of transition movement will keep coming. So you think it well, you prepare your resume, do the interview preparation, find a good mentor with someone's help. So that's structure. But 2-3 things which I think is really important is, firstly, once the motivation is clear, you are clear about what type of transition you want to make, industry, within the same company, function, whatever. Then what is the gap to be covered? Sometimes the gap is more from signaling point of view, that I have been working in a field A. If I apply on field B, I'll get rejected at the resume stage, or people will not have trust on me. Second will be that signaling comes later. Are you yourself confident to make the transition? Because sometimes transition looks easy, but they're not easy. Even after you change the company, changing in the company is one step, but you also have to excel in the other company or other roles which you are targeting. So I think understand what is the gap, because sometimes gap could be small, that you just need to improve your communication skills, some signaling, filtering in the data, like pointers in resume, and you can get some call. Sometimes that gap might be too long, for which you may require a certification, and not just few hours certification which may require a couple of months. Like I took a certification which was more than 3 months long. So you understand that what is the timeline required to bridge that gap. Thirdly, Deepa, you have again and again emphasizing on the role of a mentor. That's the most important thing. But the onus is on us how you leverage the role of a mentor. So whenever you talk to a mentor, any mentor, they always start with some more generic advice. It's how you push them to get more specific insight. So I asked some people point blank that AI ML has been a buzzword. It's very common. How much do you want to know? And how much technical information is expected of me? So very common answer which comes that, okay, you are not a technical professional, you are a management professional, you are just a tech enthusiast, so you don't need to do coding, you just need to have basic understanding of AI ML, right? So again, this is very basic, right? What do you mean by basic understanding? So then the person who I talked to through Pivot, I like few very pointed questions. You tell me what is the level of proficiency expected. You give me a case study. You give me a business solution where a non-tech management professional solved that issue. So I think those type of questions, those type of inputs, nuanced insights is what takes you to the next step.
That's one of the most important points, Anmol. Without a doubt, I think you have touched upon something that we took maybe a couple of months to learn. I think you have really highlighted that very, very succinctly and in a very effective manner. What we realized is, and I think what you're trying to say is that mentorship is a two-way street. No mentor is going to come in with, magic wand and suddenly give you all the answers to your problems. I think you will have to figure out what kind of questions to ask. A lot of times, people don't have a mentor. So when they come to Pivot or they go to another mentoring platform or they talk to somebody on LinkedIn for the first time, it's a very new experience for many people, right? They haven't done something like that before. People are managers, but a manager is not necessarily a mentor all the time, right? So I think this is a nascent kind of experience or a field for many people to be in, and they don't realize at the first go that this is going to be a very equal conversation, even though knowledge is going to maybe flow from the mentor to you, but you have to share the context, you have to ask the right questions, you have to course correct the conversation sometimes when it goes into a different direction than what you expected. I think that's a very nuanced point and very, very critical one to make the most of any mentoring program. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else that you would point out that you felt, it was going to work for you, but didn't work, perhaps?
So yeah, I think that's what. So sometimes you start comparing yourself with others. That other person also had the same experience. That person was able to make the transition in just one attempt without any certification. And when that mentor told me that if I want to make a transition in a sustainable way, I need to invest 2-3 months of certification. So we should not do that comparison that that person was able to make the transition, because a lot of time the luck factors comes in. So I think if you make that comparisons, you might get frustrated if you're not very lucky. So I think have a longer horizon, because this transition is just not a one-time activity. It's for a long spell of career. So
Yeah.
I think non-comparison mode should be done.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. Thanks for sharing that. Shatakshi, I'll bring you here, and I just want to point out that we have a couple of questions coming in, so we'll cover the answer to similar question that I had asked Anmol and Deepa. But then I do want to quickly move on to the questions, make sure we have enough time to cover them as well. So yeah, just Shatakshi, whatever you feel you want to highlight, so that people who have joined us today or will see this workshop recording later, they are able to filter through all the fluff, all the noise that's out there, and really able to focus on the most important things when they're trying to transition. What worked for you?
Right. So I specifically remember when we used to have calls, and not just calls, before even when I was starting to think of transitioning. I used to journal everything. I used to keep a tab of everything, of what I've done so far, what I need to do as my next steps, and where is the gap. Is it because of my skill set? Is it because of my reach, which I'm supposed to do on internet? Is it something that I've missed out on research? Am I lacking on a mentor who's to guide me, who's already done a transition and who can help me with tips and tricks, all of that. But the major pointers that worked out well for me is to keeping a close eye on my own performance. Also, sometimes I might have gone overboard, on self-criticism, saying that, hey, you're not doing enough, I am not sure why you're not getting jobs, or maybe you're applying just to easy applies, which might not work out well for you, or maybe you're applying to jobs which are not within your previous drawn salary, etc., etc. But if I keep all of those things aside, I think um, discipline and accountability towards your own job transition is something that will help you go a very long way, because there is nobody out there to ask you whether you've made your progress or not. It's up to you. So there might come it's basically a sine wave for me. I mean, you might have your ups and downs, you might go flat for a while, but it's up to you to get back up. And to it's not a very pleasant feeling to not have a job and get up every morning to apply with a thought process that, hey, today I need to do this, and to be able to do that till you get your next job or next transition. So couple of practical things, and seasoning your brain to do all of that was to keep a positive attitude. Second, always focus on networking. That helps you in a different way. It helps you not just build good algo on your LinkedIn, but if you might get lucky reaching out to hiring managers or co-founders with regards to your job application. Simply applying the job will not take you anywhere. As I mean, this could be a very harsh statement, but in reality it is, because LinkedIn has become a dump yard of CVs, and with those easy apply buttons, everyone can do it at any point of time. So where do you stand out from all of those people? So when you're transitioning from one role to another, you should also be sure of whether is it a big transition that you require, or is it a smaller one. Like one of our panelists mentioned, that whether it's a small skill gap or you need to take a course for a longer duration which helps you build your skill set. I've seen a lot of people transit easily, but what happens on the job is something which becomes difficult, because the transition was smooth, but again the skill set was something which was lacking. So I think be aware of what are the courses that you need to do, networking, keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date. Also the positive mindset of, yes, you'll be able to do it, and accountability of learning and unlearning were the certain things. Of course, the list is non-exhaustive, but I think just to start with all of this, I think someone who's thinking of transitioning can take few key points from all three of us, and as in four of us, and can get started with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of great nuggets there to be digested. I'm glad that this session is being recorded so people can pause, replay, digest everything that's being shared. You shared one thing at the beginning, and I know it's not very practical level insight, but it's more of a motivational thing perhaps. But I do feel it has direct alignment with how well you're going to do on your transition, which is how much do you focus on yourself versus being distracted by the external elements that are out there, whether it's comparisons, whether it's personal life distractions which come in the way of your family, your friends, relationships, and they bring with them a lot of force to pull you away from your career goals. They can. And I think it's the people who, despite those distractions and all these comparisons that might be being made, are able to really just spend even an hour, maximum 2 hours every day to focus on their career transition, who are the ones who actually get there the fastest or are able to land the best role possible. So I think highlighting the fact that your own journey is what matters most, rather than looking at others' journeys around you to get whether it's envious, whether it's just distracted, it doesn't help. I think that's very, very critical. And yeah, everything else that you shared, Shatakshi, kind of makes a lot of sense. Now, I believe Anmol should be joining us again soon, hopefully. Till then, we'll take up a question that we have gotten from Penaz here. And I think we did touch upon it briefly in one of the earlier discussions here. I'll bring Deepa to the stage. So Deepa Penaz's question, I don't know if you've seen, but it's a very good question and it's something we have definitely gotten before. Sometimes when people are pursuing a new thing, they do question themselves, am I doing the right thing? Or am I just being distracted or influenced by the social media, for example, or one of my friends who's doing really well in this new field which I had not thought of before. So her question is, how do you know you aren't falling into the shiny object syndrome? I'll bring it up here actually. Shiny object syndrome with inclination towards your new or alternate interests and skill sets. So the shiny object syndrome, right? I think it's more like when people fall for things that may be attractive just because others are chasing them. Like for example, AIML could be a shiny object syndrome in today's world. So what do you think about that? That's a very, very good question. I think you're on mute, Deepa. Oh, you went on unmute and then I think you're mute again.
I think you can hear me now, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for that question, Panas. I'm very glad that you asked me this question. You routed it to me. You routed it to me because I come from that background. So I was into HR tech, which was, as I said, I had a stable job. I had a stable income. I had that work-life balance that people talk about. I had all of it. I loved taking trainings. I loved doing that. So before moving into L&D or before moving into that career, I tested waters. So for somebody doubting whether it's the shining object syndrome, I would say testing waters is something you can do. So I tested waters in the sense after leaving Deloitte, I did training in facilitation for close to a year. I worked with a lot of mentors. I interned with few organizations. So basically, after gaining 4 years of experience, I came back to being a student again so that I can test waters. So if you're somebody who is working with an organization as a full-time employee, something I would say is to test the waters as a freelancer, something like interning with any organizations or supporting people who are doing those particular projects. So for example, if you want to be a teacher, go and start taking tuitions and see how whether you're liking it on a day-to-day basis. So shiny objects are shiny only on specific days. It won't remain shiny throughout. So what I experienced is, or what I learned in the processes is that for me, I loved facilitation, but I did not actually like it when I do it day in, day out. When I get to do it every day, that was not something I could sustain in a healthy manner. So I wanted to be a part of L&D, which gave me visibility to all elements of learning and development, or all elements of learning. So I host events, I coordinate events, I do the training need analysis, I have these very interesting conversations with different business leaders. So this combination worked out very well for me. So testing waters is something that you can do to ensure that you are not falling for shining object syndrome. So talk to people who are in those fields which you want to go into. See if you can do some kind of freelance project with them. You might not even get paid, and that's fine, because this is something you're doing to learn the process. So that is something I did, and it worked very well for me. The learning was huge. I had a very healthy network of people that I could lean on or I could learn from. So I think that is something you can try. I mean, I would love to hear what Arjun has to say as well. So this is my experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that was a great answer, Deepa. There are a lot of times, I would say, people do fall into that shiny object syndrome, right? I mean, it's just human nature. We go after where we see others making progress or achieving a lot of success. I mean, why are tech startups suddenly such a big thing in the last 5-10 years? Because we saw Flipkart being bought out by Walmart for billions of dollars. We saw other companies like Zomato and Naukri and all these tech startups, they were the real risk takers. If you think about it, they did it at a time when very, very few entrepreneurs or companies were doing it. But somebody has to take that risk initially, and then once you do, it's a huge characteristic in people to kind of go after things where that risk has been reduced, and you now know what to do that can actually help you achieve success. And that's a good thing. I don't think it's always a bad thing. I think it's a prevalent thing, this shiny object syndrome, but it's not always bad. It's a good thing, because human conditioning is such that we don't want to take a lot of risk. But when we see others de-risking a certain, let's say whether it's career transition or certain types of efforts that people make towards achieving goals, we learn from it and we realize that we can do it too. So it's a good thing. But the part which we need to be sort of careful about, cautious about, is that we're doing it for the right reasons, right? We are doing it for the reasons where it's not just about chasing what other people have chased. We need to make sure that that's something that aligns with our goals, our priorities, our personalities, right? Because if we don't do that, if you're doing it basis what another person has done, then we are trying to just live another person's life, and that doesn't make sense, right? You might land that role, but after a few years or few months even, you might feel like, okay, I am in this role, but it's not the right fit for me, right? I don't feel like I'm making the kind of impact that I want to do. So AI is obviously the biggest. I already referenced it earlier, but AI is one of the biggest shiny object syndrome right now. But again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It is a good thing. There is a lot of potential in that technology, and people are chasing it and pursuing it because they feel that if they are able to make a mark in that field, they're going to not just personally benefit, but they'll actually create a lot of impact for the society and for individuals at a grassroots level. So I think it's a good question, and one we should be very, very mindful of when we are making a transition, whether we are doing it for the right reasons or not. And I think, Deepa, I just am giving high level philosophy. You give the real practical level insight, which is that if you are unsure whether that's something you are really aligned with, or you're just chasing a trend, rather than just thinking about it, being curious at a very superficial high level, dive into it and try and see if that actually jives with what you want to do. I think Shatakshi is back, so I'll just bring her in. Yeah, I think that's how I would answer that, Deepa. We have one more question here, and I'll just quickly take that up with Shatakshi. I'll bring you up here. Shatakshi, you can see and hear me properly?
Yes,
Yeah?
I can.
Great. So the question here you might be able to see is from Akhil. Akhil is a final year student in college, and he's considering a transition into a different career path than what he originally studied. And he's curious if it's common to make transitions at such an early stage, and if so, what strategies should he be adopting to make that transition? I think it's a good question. I think there are a lot of students I know. My own sister, she studied law in college for 5 years, and then her first career was actually not in law. She became an interior designer, very, very different compared to what she studied. So I know it's pretty common, but I would love to hear from you, Shatakshi. What do you think?
Right. I think it is. So a live example of this transition is me in front of you. I, however, am an electrical engineer, but I did nothing related to electrical engineering. And so I think it is now it is very common that people who are engineers taking up different qualifications after it. There are a lot of engineers who tend to become co-founders, techies who tend to become co-founders, do their MBA. So talking about my co-founder, he did his IIT from electrical IIT IIT Bombay, and then I think he transited, did a couple of jobs, and then transited to full-time MBA roles, and then he went ahead and did IIM Ahmedabad, one of the courses from IIM Ahmedabad. So it's fair to say that there are a lot of people who do that. speaking personally for yourself, you should first be able to identify if at all this transition is something that you are comfortable with. To advise or to not, I think if you really think that even though whatever current um, course that you did is not relevant for you and you just did it because you wanted to do it, I think you should first think of what exactly is what you want to do, rather than just jumping on a boat which says, hey, I want to transit. Because it doesn't work that way. Reverse engineering is something that you should always do before taking a big step. And I think it is fair to take a transition at this point of time, because I don't think so anything will harm you at this point of time. You're just out of the college and there is a plethora of jobs out there which you can pick and ace in. So I think that suffices the first half of the question. And I think
Yeah, the second part is more around like any specific strategies. I think you've shared a lot already, but is there any specific point you would like to make to a person who has not gotten any full-time work ex?
So apply for a lot of internships, I'd say, Akhil. That will also give you a good amount of experience to practical experience to figure out if there's something that you like it or not. Understand that if you're going out buying something for an annual subscription, first try and do it for a quarterly or a monthly subscription to figure out if you're liking it or not. And I think that should give you a fair idea in whichever field you want to go. Maybe you want to continue for the rest couple of years, or maybe you want to switch or change it accordingly.
Perfect. Great. I think we have covered most of the key questions. We have some other compliments for Deepa and Shatakshi, you, with regard to some of the points you have made throughout this conversation. And we are coming up on our time as well. So, yeah, I think we can start wrapping up. Deepa, any final thoughts that you would like to share to kind of bring everything together? If there's one biggest takeaway from your transition journey, what would it be? And how, you can go ahead and share it. I think, Deepa, we can't hear you again. Maybe it takes a second for your mic to start working or something. No, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me yet?
Now
Hello?
we can.
Okay, yeah. So I would also like to, before I answer that particular question, I would also like to say something to Akhil. So when you are trying to make that shift, when you are in your engineering times or in your college times, I would say you are at a point where you can look at the options to explore in small scale as well. You can start applying for internships, but if you're looking to transition into teaching, as I said, start small. You can work with your uncle who is in the field. If your uncle, you want to shift to something related to finance, start with your startup wala uncle and try it, that works for you. So try to explore and experiment with projects which are accessible to you at this point, so that you can see whether you're liking it. And at the same time, you can keep applying to opportunities that you find on LinkedIn or whatever other, job hunt sites that you see out there. The only point so this answer, I wanted to bring up this central point that I wanted to convey is take that first small step that will give that momentum. So when it's about transitioning, it's all about the momentum you create. You won't feel like applying to jobs, or you won't actually. There is no such day where you can actually feel like, okay, today I'll do and sit and do my resume. You shouldn't wait for that day. That day is never gonna happen. So it's just that you put down on your calendar, sit down and do your resume. There is no such day where you actually feel like, okay, today I can apply to jobs, today I can have that mentorship call, today I feel like reaching out to 100 mentors out there in LinkedIn. There is no such day. There is no such day where you'll actually feel like it. It's all about taking that first small step. The next day, take that second small step. It's all about the momentum you create and just do it. It's a Nike way of doing it, just do it. Uh, Rather than waiting for that feeling and that actual willingness or everything from inside making you sitting and doing it, there is no such thing. So for example, today my sister is actually shooting this as well. So today, me and my sister actually wanted to launch a YouTube channel and just try it out. How it would be to do a YouTube channel. She is a counselor. She is into psychology, and she's a dancer as well. So we wanted to do it. So this was there in pipeline for the past 2 years. So today we were just okay, like just today we'll just start doing it. So today
Mhm.
was 3 days. So the moment you figure out that there is no B day that you can come to planning 10 days ago. It's
Yeah.
now. So it's just about taking the first small step.
Right. There's that quote, Deepa, I'm sure you know that one, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
exactly that. I think keep putting one foot in front of the other rather than thinking about how you're going to cover the entire mile or the entire marathon. Beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Shatakshi, I think we don't have, unfortunately, we lost Anmol. He is not here, but he already shared a wealth of insight. So I hope people take a lot of good takeaways from that. But Chatakshi, I think you've also shared a wealth of wisdom today from your own experience. Any final words that you would like people to really take away with them from today?
I think just when you're applying, just the entire process, make it like a fun process. Have smaller goals rather than bigger goals for you to set up. So in that way, when you achieve one small goal, you'll have that tick in your mind saying, hey, at least you did this, which also will motivate you for the next one. And make it a fun learning process wherein you're trying to understand more about yourself. Even if it's the small transition that you want to make right now, do it with full effort, so that and full enthusiasm, so that even when you make your next transition after that, I'm sure, because who wants to do the same thing over and over again, right?
Mhm.
So make it it's such a fun loving process, so that you learn more about yourself at the same time, which will also not help you while you're transition, it will help you post transition, it will help you in your further transitions.
Great point. I don't think I've thought about it a lot, but I do hear it from people. When they apply to, let's say, for masters or graduate schools, they have to do these statement of purpose and very long essays, which are very introspective and in nature. And I've heard a lot of people say, when they write those essays, saying, I had a lot of fun. I didn't think I would, realize so many new things about myself. I'm such a different person than who I thought I was, and those kind of things. So I think doing these kind of exercises can be more fun, like you said. I think it can be more fun. It can bring a lot more insights than you had initially anticipated about yourself and about the world outside. Great points. Thanks so much, Shatakshi. I really appreciate both you, Deepa, and also Anmol for sharing all of the great insights you have gathered during this process. And again, I want to re-emphasize, they have all shared some similar points, but a lot of varying points as well. It's not just one thing that they're all saying. And that is because, as I was mentioning earlier, I do really believe that no career journey or transition journeys are exactly the same, even if you have the same exact domain and industry experience. That's just because you as an individual are different from others. So you have to take that into account. But I want to take this moment to thank everybody who joined us on this Thursday evening, took some time out. I hope this was helpful. And if there's any support or guidance or even tools that you're looking for to achieve ambitious career goals, do check out our website, which is pivot at mypivot.work. And you will get a chance to speak with individuals like Deepa, like Shatakshi, and Anmol, who have deep experience in your target role and get the mentorship, structure, and support that you need to achieve your goals.